known for her wildly popular and hysterical blog, People I Want to Punch in the Throat. And if you haven't yet followed it, you need to. She has been described by many as Irma Bombeck with a few F-bombs. I've been known to drop a few myself. Jen is known for her hilarious rants and funny observations on everything from parenting to gift giving to celebrity behavior to politics to Elves on the Shelves. She does not suffer fools lightly. Love her already. Jen is the author of the New York Times bestseller, People I Want to Punch in the Throat, Competitive Crafters, Drop Off Despots, and Other Suburban Scourges. Apparently I should have read that, yes. Thank you. Which was a finalist for Goodreads Reader's Choice Award. Her latest books are Working with People I Want to Punch in the Throat, Cantankerous Clients, Micromanaging Minions, and Other Supercilious Scourges, and My Lame Life, Queen of the Misfits. Yes. Without further ado, Jen. It's not turned off. That would be great, wouldn't it? Yeah. It's going to do an alarm here in a minute telling me that I've overslept and I need to be downstairs. Okay. I'm just going to stick this back in here because otherwise I'm going to throw it across the room. Can you still hear me? Yeah. Okay, great. All right. Thank you so much for having me come today. I really, really appreciate this. I think it was a few months ago that I got an email from Melissa asking me, do you ever come to Boston? And I was like, well, if you tell me to come to Boston, I'll come to Boston. And so she was like, well, I just think our chamber would really like you. And I said, well, then I'm coming. It's very hard to find my people sometimes. That's why I had to go on the internet and find everybody. My name is Jen Mann, and I'm actually from Kansas City, and I travel around the country speaking to different groups and organizations, and so I appreciate you guys all having me this morning, and thank you to Fidelity Bank for sponsoring this event and bringing in speakers. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about kind of the whole story of why I punch people in the throat. I don't actually punch them in the throat. I've actually never been in a fight in my life, so you don't have to worry about me. Look at me, I go like a munchkin, so it's fine. Like no one's afraid of me. But my story starts about 2006. In 2006, I was pregnant. I was about 8 months pregnant with my second child, and I had a 2-year-old. And I was a work-at-home mom. I had a real estate business that I was running, and I was sort of, I called it a business, but it really was sort of just me selling houses when I kind of felt like selling houses or when a friend wanted to buy a house. I really didn't treat it very much like a business. My broker one day, I remember saying, like, you're really successful shooting from the hip. Imagine if you had a plan. And I was like, that sounds terrible. Shooting from the hip. And so, but in 2006, I'm very pregnant with my second child. I have a 2-year-old. And my husband had like the real job. He had like benefits, and he had a car, and he had the 401k and all that kind of stuff. And I was just sort of mad money. But he called me one day and he said, I have terrible news. They let everybody in my department go today. And I thought, oh my God, what are we gonna do? What's happening? And so he said, don't worry, I have a plan. And my husband has a lot of plans. And sometimes his plans are great, but sometimes his plans are awful. And I wasn't quite sure what kind of plan this one was going to be. So I said, what is your plan? And he said, well, here's the thing. Your real estate business is still going pretty well. You really need to hire someone. We've talked about this. You needed to hire someone because the baby's coming and you're not going to be able to put as many hours in. And he said, so you should hire me. And I said, we're going to get divorced. And he said, we're not going to get divorced. It's going to be great. And he said, and we're going to stop paying brokerage fees, so you're not going to have an office anymore. You're going to work out of the house. We'll all work together. We're going to take the kids out of daycare. We're going to co-parent and work together all day, every day. It's going to be amazing. And I wanted to die right there. But I really didn't have any choice at that point. What could we do? So we did that. And we did that in 2006. And when 2011 rolled around, we were still doing that. And I was losing my freaking mind. And we would go to bed at night, and he would lay there and he'd say, "What did you do today?" And I was like, "You were there." Always there. And my kids wouldn't leave me alone. You know, everybody needed something from me, and I was feeling like I was just failing on every level. I was a terrible realtor. I was a terrible wife. I was a horrible mother. I'd gone out and bought new underwear because I couldn't keep up with the laundry. And so I just felt like everything was collapsing around me. And so my husband came to me and he said, "I have bad news. This isn't working." And I said, "See, I told you we were going to get divorced." And he said, no, I love being together. I love working together. I love raising our kids together. It's so great how much time we spend together. I'm like, "But is it? Like, we even went grocery shopping together." And so I was like, "Is this great? Because I don't feel very great." And so he said, "No, it's okay. You're just a little overwhelmed, but I have a plan." And I thought, "Oh God, what is your plan now?" Because back when we started working together and the housing market crashed and everything was crashing around us, his plan was maybe we should move into our garage and rent out our house. And so I wasn't sure what kind of plan this was going to be this time. So I was like, "What plan do you have now?" And he said, "I think you should start a blog." And I thought, what the heck is a blog? And he said, it's a place where, all the moms have one. There's this thing called a mommy blog. And you go on this website and you just like tell your problems and you dump your stories, and then everybody like commiserates with you. And I said, "Why would anybody be interested in what I have to say?" And he's like, "Well, it's not really about you finding an audience. It's more about you just like venting how you feel, and then you come back to us." And he said, "Writing is a form of therapy." And I do have a degree in creative writing, but at that point I had only used it to write stuff for other people or to describe, cozy bungalows and things like that. And so I really had not been able to be very creative. And he said, "I think you need to start this blog, and then you'll have this creative outlet and you'll feel better." And I thought, it's the dumbest idea I've ever heard, but I'll go look. And so I went online and I started looking at all these blogs, these mom blogs. And I don't know if you've ever read a mom blog. They're some of the worst people on the planet. They're the biggest liars. Like, they're sitting there going, "I love nothing more than baking with a 2-year-old. No, nobody enjoys that. Nobody thinks that's fun. There was a woman back in the day who, her whole group, they would clean together. So it would be Wednesday's dust day, ladies, dust, let's all dust our homes together. And I was like, "No, I don't want to do this. This does not make me feel better." I actually felt worse about myself. And so that night we go to bed and my husband's like, "What did you do today? Did you start a blog?" And I said, "No, I didn't start a blog because I think those women are on drugs and I'm not going to do that." And he said, no, don't you see? You're going to be the anti-mom blogger. You're going to be the one that tells the truth. You're going to be the one that says, I love my husband, I love my kids, but I also want to go live on an island by myself." Like, he's like, "You're the one who's going to tell them what it's really like when you are trying to parent and work together and all the things, but yet you're going to tell it in a funny way." And I thought, what are you talking about? And I said, "Well, all the blogs have really cute names. What would I call my blog?" And he said, "Oh, that's easy. I got that figured out. It's people I want to punch in the throat because you say it all the time." So I went out the next day and I started looking, and sure enough, peopleIwanttopunchinthethroat.com was still available. So I bought it, and I started blogging. And he was right, I did feel better. I would just tell funny stories about parenting my kids or about myself or about my husband. And I started writing and I felt a lot better, and that was the spring of 2011. And then in December of 2011, my kids were 4 and 6, and we had this elf on the shelf doll. And you know what the elf on the shelf is? You move him because he's magic, and he's great though when you have like a 4-year-old who's misbehaving, because you can just be like, "Elf, he's watching you," And so, but when you try to remember to move him, he really sucks. And so I remember that night I'm laying in bed and I'm going through the list in my head of things that didn't get done today that need to get done tomorrow, and I realized I haven't moved that elf. And so I elbow my husband and I said, "Can you please, I just need help. Go move the dang elf. I beg you." And he was like, "No, this is perfect." My husband's a truther, and he hates that Santa gets all the credit. And so he's just like, I'm the one who built that bike. I'm the one who bought the dollhouse. Forget that guy. And so he's like, so tomorrow we'll tell them the truth. We'll tell them that Santa's not real, and that this is all because your mother forgot to move the elf. And you're such a. So I got up and I went and I moved the elf. And I hadn't been blogging long, but I've been blogging long enough to know that if you do something and you're a blogger, you have to tell social media you did it or else it never happened. So I had to get on social media and tell them all that I'd forgotten to move my elf, and was I the only one who was failing at this whole elf thing. And it was about 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night, and suddenly my feed was just full of, oh crap, me too. Ah, shoot, I gotta get out of bed and go move my elf. Oh no, here I go. And so all of these moms chiming in. And a woman who has no children, and someday I cannot wait to go to her baby shower and bring her a puppy. She chimed in, and she said, I don't see what the big deal is, moms. You just need a system. And then she dropped a link to 101 ideas of things to do with your elf on the shelf. And it was things like trash your kitchen and say the elf did it. Tee hee hee. Get up in the middle of the night and swap everybody's closets. Hilarious chaos in the morning when you're trying to get ready for school and no one can find their clothes. What are you talking about? And I was like, I'd have to clean my kitchen first before I trashed it, before anybody would believe anything. And I'm going to get up and create more chaos. First of all, I'm not barely sleeping anyways. I'm going to waste my night switching everybody's closet, and it's already chaos in the morning, and I'm adding to the chaos. I'm like, are you high, lady? And so I was so angry, and I felt like this just anger just bubbling up inside of me, and I was like, no. And I was like, I am a good mother. My kids are happy and they are healthy, and I do not need to make a parachute out of a pair of underwear for a doll to prove it. And so I sat down and I wrote a blog post in response to her, and I felt better, and I went to bed. And about a week later, I still do not know how. If I knew, I would bottle it and sell it and do it every day. But for some reason, that post caught fire. I had 70 readers in those days that always read and shared everything, and this was no different. But for some reason, this one really struck a note. And so it went viral. And in 24 hours, I had over 1 million reads on it. And I freaked out a little bit because, people tell you that you can put things on the internet and anyone can find it, but you don't really believe them that that's going to happen to you. Well, it happens. And so I'm sort of sitting in a corner rocking and crying because I have 1 million people reading my work, and I've never had 1 million people read anything that I've ever done. And I'm not really, and I'm just like, it's not even my funniest one. And my husband looks up from the computer. He'd been watching the analytics come in, and he's like, what are you going to do tomorrow? And I thought, tomorrow? My God. And I said, I can't do anything. Nothing will be this good again. I'll never top this. And my husband, he's a truther. And so he said, well, no, of course not. No one expects that. And he said, but here's the thing. I had created a Facebook account that night for the blog, and I got 17,000 people to follow me that night. And so he said, you have 17,000 people sitting here that want to hear from you, that want to be entertained by you. On our first date, you told me you wanted to be a writer. Do you want to be a writer? And he's like, well, then go write. And so he said, then start entertaining these people. And he said, and stop focusing on the negative. I had been really focused on the 1% of people who sent me negative comments about it. In my blog and in all my writings, I call my kids Gomer and Adolpha. And I call them these horrible names, partly because their real names are worse, but also because I had people threatening to steal my children, telling me that I was a terrible mom because I didn't want to move a stupid doll. And so I was actually afraid for them because they were just little kids and they would have gone with anybody with a puppy or what have you. Now that they're 14 and 12, we can talk. Maybe the weekend it would be nice or something. But back then they were cute and sweet, and I was afraid for them. And so I changed their names and I hid their identities, and I was really focused on these negative comments. And so once again, my husband pulled up all the positive stuff, and he said, start reading these. Read about the women who say, thank you for making me laugh. This is a really hard time of year for me, for one reason or another. Either everything falls to me, or I just lost someone close to me, or I'm going through divorce and this will be my first Christmas without my kids, like whatever it was. But thank you for making me laugh. I really needed to laugh. And I kept hearing that over and over again. And even though I knew I was a funny person and I'd always told funny stories, I didn't think about what it was doing for other people. I knew what it was doing for me, that I physically felt better, that I felt better writing funny stories and laughing, and I feel better when I laugh. But I didn't think about making other people laugh would make them feel better. I hadn't really thought that far ahead. And so at that point it kind of changed it. Yes, I wanted to be a writer, but when I was in college, I wanted to be a writer of I wanted to be like Donna Tartt. I wanted to write a book every 10 years and everybody would celebrate, and and they'd all be, NPR would talk about it, and we'd study it someday. And I wanted to do that. I didn't know that I'd be Irma Bombeck with F-bombs, but you know what, it works. And so I started writing, and I realized that was actually what I wanted to do. I wanted to entertain people and make them laugh. I wanted to make them feel better. And so every now and again, you will still find me raging, because that's my other, if I'm not laughing, I'm pissed off. And so every now and again, you will still find me raging out there, but for the most part, I'm always trying to entertain people and make them laugh, because I think that life is hard, and especially as adults, you watch little kids, they have no problem laughing. They laugh all the time. But when we hit this adult age, for some reason, we can't laugh. And the other thing we can't do is we can't laugh at ourselves. And I see this a lot. And if you read anything I write, a lot of times I'm poking fun at myself, and a lot of times I'm poking fun at my husband. My husband is a great sport. In fact, some of the stories, people will write to me and they'll say, oh, I can't believe you told that story about your husband. He must be so mad. And I'm like, he's the one who reminded me. He's the one who told me, hey Jen, I was writing a book, I have a book called Spending the Holidays with People I Want to Punch in the Throat. And I told him my editor wanted more chapters. She needed some more chapters, and so I was breaking out into other, it was mostly Christmas, but I was breaking out into other chapters, and so I was trying to brainstorm and think, what other funny stories could I tell? And my husband was the one who was like, hey, remember your first Mother's Day when I gave you a scale? Do that. So I wrote about that way, and people were like, and men and women were both coming back to me going, I can't believe you threw your husband under the bus. I'm like, I'd actually blocked that one out because I was so angry at him that, I forgot about that one, and he reminded me, because he can laugh at himself. The other person who comes up a lot in my writing is my mother. My mother is a really good sport, and I tease her a lot. That's sort of my love language. I say that sarcasm and teasing is my love language. If I don't like you, then I don't tease you. And so if I'm teasing you, it's because I really like you. I think you can handle it. And so somebody asked me one time if I had a father. They're like, is your dad dead? And I was like, no, he's just not funny and he can't take a joke. And I told him that a few weeks ago, and he was like, it's true, never write about it. And so it's like, but I feel bad for him, because I think he does a lot of horribly funny stuff that we could make fun of all the time, but he won't do it because he's too buttoned up and tight. And so I think that part of what I'm also trying to do for people is to help them loosen up a little bit and be able to laugh at things. We've become very serious and we've become very polarized. That's the other thing, is we can't really laugh. Half the time the things I'm making fun of, I do it myself. I'm doing it. I'm like, oh, instead of saying, oh crap, I do that, and laughing, people get very bent out of shape and say, oh, you're making fun of me, I can't believe it, there's nothing wrong with the way I do things. It's just a joke, folks. Take a joke. Pull the stick out of the butt and take a joke. And so I'm always trying to encourage people to laugh. And then I noticed a few years ago, I don't let my kids read what I write for people I want to punch in the throat. Partly because when they were little, believe it or not, I drop F-bombs like commas normally, but with them, I can be as good as I am today. And so with them, I'm like a choir teacher, a Sunday school teacher, but without them, I'm like a truck driver or whatever. And so now, though, it's more that they know who everybody is. I change everybody's names in my books because I don't want people to figure out who they are. But my kids know, because they were there. They were there for half of this stuff. And so they'll tell people, they'll out me. And I don't want that. So I don't let them read what I wrote. And a few years ago, my daughter was having some trouble at school. And she was in 5th grade at the time. And she just was kind of not she wasn't fitting in, and she was really trying hard to kind of change herself and be different to fit in and to be more like normal or what have you. And I thought, it took me 30 years to kind of embrace my weirdness and my quirkiness and to find my people and to figure out that I'm okay the way I am. Yes, I'm loud, I'm crass, I'm brass, I don't care. But I'm also super sweet and nice and kind. And if you're good to me, I'm good to you. And so, and I thought, I don't want her to start changing herself already and worrying about being perfect and things like that. And so I wrote a book called My Lame Life. And that's a YA fiction book that I wrote. Because the other thing too is I felt like kids weren't laughing anymore either. If you have kids, you'll notice that like about 4th or 5th grade is when all the books turn very serious. After that, they get very serious topics. And while I love the serious topics, and I love to read about the dragons and the drugs and the deaths and all that kind of stuff too, I also think like there needs to be a funny palate cleanser. And so I wanted something that I could write that would be something that the kids could read and laugh and figure out how to own their own quirkiness and their own weirdness. Because at this point now, I have a following over 1 million people now on social media, and I have gathered all the misfits and all the weirdos and all the quirky people and all the funny people together. And we're all spread out across the country, but we can still hang out together online. And so I encourage you that if you don't have people in your life who make you laugh every day, or you're not making yourself laugh every day, I encourage you to find funny people, either in real life or online. I may not be your cup of tea, and that's okay. Like, I'm not saying you have to follow me. I hope you check me out and try it, but I may not be your cup of tea. But there is somebody out there who is your cup of tea and your brand of humor, and I encourage you to find them and to follow that and laugh every day, because it will literally make you feel better. You will feel so much better. Is there a better feeling than a belly laugh? No. So seek out comedy and make sure that you're laughing every single day. I appreciate having me today, and I'm not sure how much longer I have. What do I have left? About 15 minutes or so, right? So we have some time for questions, if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, I'll tell you a story. All right. I'm going to tell you a story. Okay, so here we go. So you get that green book over there. It's called Working with People I Want to Punch in the Throat. And it's all the horrible jobs I've had leading up to the best job in the world, which is New York Times best-selling author. It's the job I've wanted since I was 5 years old. And if you read my first book, The Competitive Crafters, what was it? I gotta remember, Despots and Scourges, that one. If you read that one, then you know that my husband and I met on AOL. I lived in Kansas, he lived in New York City. We met in a Star Wars chat room on AOL. Back when it was just like and so, now there's all these like eHarmony and all those like everyone can date online, but back then people were like, you met a man on the internet and he didn't kill you? I'm like, I know, right? And so this is like the 90s, so we met on this Star Wars chat room, and I actually thought it was good because I really didn't want to date anybody. I'm a terrible person. I hate to put on pants to leave my house, and so I really did not want to go out, but I like to be entertained, and he entertained me, and I was like, this is perfect. He lives in New York. I can sit here in my jammies and no bra and talk to him online about Star Wars, and I have no pressure to do anything. This is awesome. And but one thing happened, or not one thing, many things happened, and it led to us realizing that we actually kind of wanted to hang out with pants. And so, we got together, and we decided that it would be best if I moved to New York City. I'd grown up in New Jersey, and so I had friends out there still, and I was familiar with the area, versus him moving to Kansas. And so I moved out to New York City, and my parents thought it was a little crazy. I was in my early 20s, and they were sort of like, who is this guy? And I'm like, he's just a Star Wars nerd, it's fine. I needed their help though, because I couldn't afford to go by myself. I didn't have a job yet, I didn't have anything. And so my parents were like, okay, here's the thing. We will help you get out there, but you need to find a job and be on your feet by X date. And if you're not, we're bringing you home. And so I had this sort of pressure looming on my head that I had to find a job and be able to pay my bills by a certain date, or else I'd have to go home. And so I started looking for jobs, and I got hooked up with a headhunter, and she was helping me find a job. And in those days, I wanted to work for a magazine. I thought I wanted to work at like a Condé Nast or something like that, where I could write. But I found out that those magazines pay you in lipstick, and so and there was like no money in it. And I thought, how am I going to pay my bills with this job? And so I went back to the headhunter, and I said, okay, here's the thing. I'm kind of really liking the Star Wars guy. I think I'm going to stay, but I need to find another job. So this is what I need to make. Like this is the salary I need. I'll take anything. So she came back and she said, okay, well, I found a job where you will work for the chairman of a media company, and you will basically do whatever he wants you to do. And I was like what? She's like, pick up his dry cleaning, take his dog to the vet, you know, maybe write some messages for him, like whatever he wants. Like it's like the most bizarre job in the world, but you know, it pays well and you can afford your bills. So I said, okay, well, I'll interview for it. And so I started to look him up because I feel like you have to do your research before you have an interview with somebody. So I looked him up to see what he was all about. And I found out that he was about 30 years old. And his dad really owned the company. And he was the chairman. And all the pictures I could find of him were on yachts with models, like on each side. And he was really cute, and he was really young. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so this was all before 50 Shades of Grey, but in my mind, I was sure that the billionaire and I were going to hook up. And so I was like, I'm going to walk into his office, I'm going to fall down adorably, he's going to, you know, help me up and look into my eyes and then be like, oh, it's a doughy Midwestern girl I've been waiting for my whole life. And he's like, you know, you're funny and you're charming, you know, these models are so vapid and boring. I'm like, I know. And so I was sure that we were going to fall in love, and so sure that I told the Star Wars boyfriend this. And I was like, you know, I was like, here's the thing, like the billionaire and I are probably going to hook up. And I was like, this has been fun, like this has been nice, right? And he was just like, I tell you what, if you and the billionaire hook up, I'll come to your wedding. Like that's, you can bet on it. So I went off to my interview that day, and it was pouring down rain. And you know, you guys all live in a big city, and you know that when Kansans don't understand this, we don't walk anywhere. But when you're walking out in the rain with the umbrella, it doesn't matter, you're getting soaked. And so I'm just soaked by the time I get there, and you know, probably makeup is running down my face. And the woman from HR meets me at the elevator, and she's like, whoa. And so she's like, do you want to freshen up? And I had been practicing all the proper answers for all those questions of like, you know, what's your greatest weakness? You know, I work too hard. You know, what do you do in your free time? File. Like, and so I did not want to forget any of those answers. And so I was like, no, let's just get started. Let's just do this. Let's go. And so she's like, okay. So she takes me in this conference room, and she's asking me, you know, what's your greatest weakness? And I work too hard. And so we're going through all the things, and I'm answering, and I'm just killing it. Like, she really likes me. I can tell she likes me. And she's like, yeah, I think you're the person. I think you're the one, and I think this is great. She said, it's just the chairman would like to meet you. Just say hello. But, I mean, no big deal, no pressure. He just wants to make sure you're crazy. I mean, you're not crazy, right? And I was like, no, I'm not crazy. Bring in my husband. And so I was like, no, I'd love to meet him. And so he comes in, and he actually looks better like in a boardroom than he does on a yacht, and he like smells good, and I'm like, hi. And so he sits down across from me, and he's asking me, he's like, what do you like to do, Jen? I'm like, what do you like to do? And he's like, well, I like to rollerblade. I'm like, I do too. I have never been rollerblading in my life, you know. And so he's just like, I like to sail. I'm like, I like to sail. I have never been sailing. And so he's doing all these questions, and so he's like, yeah, I think you seem great. You know, if she likes you, I like you. He's like, I mean, at this point, he doesn't care. I'm just going to pick up his dog poop. Like, he really doesn't care. So he's ready to get out of there. And so then the HR lady says, oh, wait, we have to ask Jen the question. And he said, oh, I hate the question. And she's like, it's only fair. We've asked everybody else the question. Jen needs to answer the question. I'm like, ask me the question. And so he said, okay, Jen, such a dumb question. It doesn't mean anything. There's no wrong answer. Just say whatever comes to mind first. And I said, okay, I'm ready. And so he said, okay, if you were an animal, what animal would you be and why? What the hell? Like, what? And so I'm sitting there in my head and I'm thinking, I'm like, a dog, because I'm loyal. I'm like, a bee, because I support the hive. Like, an ant, because I stay in my lane. Like, what am I supposed to say? You know, what does a corporate person want to hear with this answer? But then I'm thinking, no, he said there's no wrong answer, and just say whatever comes to mind. So I said I would be a koala bear. And the HR lady said, interesting. And she writes it down, and she said, why would you be a koala bear? And I said, Because I'm little and cute, but I'm feisty. Arr! And I growled at them. And then I winked at the chairman. And shooter finger. I did not get that job. But that is just one of the many stories in this book, and I hope that you guys check it out. I do have books for sale today. They are $15 each, and I can use cash or credit. And I have like maybe time for like one question. If anybody now you have a question, do you want to know? I ended up with the Star Wars guy. Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all.
Well, yes, so thank you, Jen. This is hilarious. I feel like you're my spirit animal. Highest compliment I can get. And I will tell you that Megan actually texted me. She's like, she's describing me. My kids and my elf on the shelf.
Everything. I met my husband on AOL. Yeah.
Not in a Star Wars chat room.
No, that's
so Game of Thrones. No, it wasn't Game of Thrones back then.
No.
Lord of the Rings. And I did say to you, like, he might kill you, like.
I almost killed him.
And if you met him, like, yeah, not possible. We have a small token, a little charger with our chamber charger. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Fidelity Bank. If you haven't checked out on the back of our program book, we have some great upcoming events for the chamber. We have our annual social coming up on the 23rd, Thursday the 23rd. On Wednesday the 22nd, though, you could go to, if you know any veterans, Fidelity Bank is having a financial seminar for veterans. So please share that information, which is also on their Facebook page. Check that out. Thank you again for all of you joining, and thank you, Jen. This was fantastic. So, thank you.